What's going on, sports fans? Thanks for tuning in to the King and Duck channel. And today we want to talk about, for our very first podcast, we want to talk about race relations in sports. And obviously, basketball is very dear to my heart. It's something that I love, something that I coach, but we also love to push forward race relations in America. That is important because in order for us to do that, we not only need to spend more time together learning about each other, but we also need to learn about each other's culture and learn the history about each other's culture. What more perfect way to teach about race and race relations than sports? Like, for instance, in 1936, Jesse Owens, African American man who would later go on to the Olympics to run against Nazi Germany, and he would win that race, and oh, what a wonderful race he ran. So we also have things like 1950, Nat Sweetwater Clifton broke the color barrier in the NBA.
This ain't about the color of my skin.
Nathaniel Clifton, I always know you was born with a higher purpose.
And then who could we leave out but none other than Mr. Bill Russell, who was the first African American to coach a NBA team to an NBA championship. He was unable to be served in a Lexington, Kentucky restaurant. So what did he and his teammates do? They boycotted the game. But without further ado, we want to introduce our topic of today, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese fiasco. And unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, we're sure and more than certain that you've probably heard about the "you can't see me" hand gesture and the ring pointing that was done by Miss Angel Reese. And if you've been on social media, you've probably seen a lot of negative comments, but then you also seen the other side, the other perspective. So we just want to really kind of highlight what's been going on and talk about, are Black Americans still held to a different standard than their white American counterparts? Let's get into the topic. So, what did we see? We saw Miss Angel Reese kind of, what we say, taunting Caitlin Clark, kind of going after her, pointing at her finger, maybe going overboard, but the whole story kind of has to be told. And what does that mean? We saw Caitlin Clark kind of doing the same gesture, not directly at the players, but she still did it. So the question I'm asking, the three questions I'm posing today is, do you have a problem with players showing emotion in sports? Because now you see a lot of emotion, a lot of chest bumping, a lot of LeBron pushing the floor to the ground, a lot of, now you see the whole "you're too small" gesture. You see a lot of gestures. Trae Young with his ice cold gesture, James Harden with his gesture, Steph Curry, he has his gesture. So a lot of male NBA players have gestures. So the question is, do you have a problem with NBA players making those kind of gestures? And if so, then I totally get your perspective, because with this new generation, what you see now is a lot of players really being very demonstrative, not really showing what is known as that good sportsmanship that, you know, us older cats have been raised on, you know, kind of respect your opponent, don't taunt your opponent. But it's really big now. You see it in the NFL. You see players doing team touchdown celebrations. You see it in the NBA. So now the question is, do you have a problem with that? Because if so, then hey, we get it. But now that the women are doing it, do you have a problem with women making the gestures? And the question is, why? Because the men have kind of set the precedent for what we see now. We see a lot of over-the-top celebrations and gestures in sports. So that's the question. That's the first question. Do you have a problem with it? Because today's generation, you're just going to see it. It's here to stay. It's part of the sport. It's not really going anywhere. Next question. Is it upsetting to you that women are being more demonstrative? I think it's great for the sport. If you look, ratings are way up for the NCAA tournament. I think it's really great for the game. More people are tuning in. But are you upset that women are now following the path of men? And then finally, the final question. Are you upset that Angel Reese did the same gesture to Caitlyn that she did to us? And before you leave that comment down there, make sure you know the backstory. LSU players felt a little bit disrespected. And they probably felt she was a little bit arrogant. They saw the way that the Hawkeyes played against South Carolina Gamecocks. They saw the game plan where they weren't guarding the three-point line. They weren't guarding the perimeter. And you can even see one highlight, one clip of Caitlin Clark waving off the player. So the LSU players felt like, hey, if you guard us that same way, we're going to torch you from three. They felt like that was disrespectful the way that they did, as you can see in this article clip right here. Angel Reese is not the first person to point to her ring like that, you know, saying she's going to get a ring. You can also see Tom Brady doing that. You can also see she's not the only one. So the question is, why do you have a problem with Angel Reese? Do you think it doesn't have a place in sports? Because I would say, yes, maybe it was a little bit over the top, but you got to understand the culture of today is a little bit different than the 90s, the 2000s. That probably would have been a fight back in the day. But today, players kind of just understand it's part of the game. You're going to be the victim of somebody's TikTok or their Instagram story. Are black players held to a higher standard? It seems like a lot of people on Twitter had a lot of negative feedback, as you can see from this one post right here. And here's another post where you can see kind of the negative feedback, right? But no, there doesn't seem to be that same kind of backlash for Caitlin Clark. She kind of initiated the gesture. She kind of initiated John Cena gesture, and she, you know, was really getting a lot of praise. Some people are feeling sorry for her. And on the other side, they're kind of vilifying Angel Reese and what she did. So I would say, hey, it's really nothing. It's just part of the sport. It's part of the competitive nature of the sport. But why does this, you know, have those kind of racial undertones? You know, you can kind of see like these code words. It's not overt racism. It's very covert. It's very hidden. But words like bar fight, words like aggressive, words like street fight, you know, those are really, you know, loaded terms. It's our very first podcast. It's going to only get better from here. Please leave, like, a comment, subscribe. You know, we're trying to push the conversation forward. Hey, Jazar, aka Coach J, I'm here just talking about sports and politics, and this is our first podcast. We hope you like it. Leave a comment because this topic is trending.